Welcome to Healing Your Family Legacy, here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Innovative, evidence-based recovery that helps to identify intergenerational trauma, allowing for freedom and embracement of the healing process. Today, episode 160, Courage, Part 1. And now your host, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee.
And this is Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, helping you heal your family legacy. The other day, I was snowshoeing, which I do frequently now that it's winter and there's snow in the mountains. And it was a particularly... Okay, I'm clapping that. It was particularly difficult. I had, I've had some new medication experiences, which kind of left me a little bit weak. I won't be weak for long, but it was a little bit weak. And I was going up a mountain and it was tough. It was hard. And I was saying to my friends, this is hard. And they said, yes, this is hard. Even without this new medication, it's really hard. I don't know why it was difficult, except for it just was. It was, there's a lot of elevation gain. I had to actually stop once in a while and just rest, which I don't do. I usually just kind of keep going until I'm at the other end. Anyway, there's a reason for this. So as I was going, and, I had yet another big hill to climb on my snowshoes with ice underneath the snow, which wasn't fun. I thought, I want to talk about courage. And that's how it came up, because I thought I could go back and just not do this today. But, people who are, my age, or really any age, where they're doing something really strenuous, really hard, you do reach those moments where you say, okay, I've had enough. I think I'll go back. Or I've had enough. I think I'll stop. And, stopping doesn't necessarily mean quitting. It just means I kind of got to do something different here. But I went on, finished the thing, slept like a log last night. And, I thought about courage a lot during that time. And I thought, what is it? And of course, everybody has their own definition, but I thought I'd go to the source. The Oxford Language Dictionary defines courage as the ability to do something that frightens one, the strength in the face of pain or grief. And Webster says that it is mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. And I thought, well, both of those things are true, and they're kind of similar. It's one thing to persevere and finish that snowshoe, which may not sound courageous to some people, but it was to me. But I was thinking about, what does that mean in everyday life? And what does that mean in Heal Your Family Legacy? What does that mean? And what that means is that the people who take on the work to heal your family legacy, they're courageous. I've given many speeches over time, and I think some are even available on my website. And I've talked about what it is to heal from childhood trauma. And I'll probably have an opportunity to repeat that sometime, whatever that is. The way I see childhood trauma is when you are growing up in a family that is less than nurturing to you. And when people have come to me over time to deal with whatever mental health issues or psychological issues or, family issues or addiction issues, we always get right back to your childhood trauma. Because if you have been raised in a family that is nurturing, you're not in my office visiting me. You might be on a hike or a snowshoe with me, but you're not in my office. And what I've said to those people who have listened to my speeches on, codependence, healing childhood trauma, all those issues, I've looked at the audience and said to them, you are the most courageous people I have ever known. I've known a lot of people in my life. I've worked and been personally involved with, professionally and personally involved with tens of thousands of people. So I know them. I don't just know them to say hello. If I do see them, I know who they are. I know their story. I know their struggles. Because when you've been a therapist for 50 some odd years and you are good at what you do, for the most part, those people's lives are changed, and hopefully for the better. And so when I look down at this audience, I know they're all like really wanting to make changes. And it's not that, I want to change my childhood. No, that would be called rewriting history. There's an epidemic of that anyway. But to rewrite your personal history isn't useful at all. Now you've just added onto the trauma that was already there. And it may not seem like people who are willing to turn around and look at and embrace their childhood trauma, it might not seem like that's really courageous, but it always is. In my legacy workshops, which are workshops that I have conducted over time, where people turn around and look at and understand and get educated about their childhood trauma, when, they are in the first day, and even before the first day of the workshop, I say, how are you doing? Well, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm really frightened by this. I don't know what's going to come up. And even though they've already lived through it and they have survived through it, they're still afraid to look at it, to really take it apart and see how it affected them in their adult life. It frightens them. I've never heard anyone say, wow, I am just so excited to turn around and face my childhood trauma. I just can't stand it. I have never heard that. No. I hear, Donna, I'm really afraid. I'm afraid of what's going to come up. And it takes courage, okay? It takes courage to do that. The mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. When you face your fears, when you make a decision to go forward and discover what happened to create the issues that you're having as an adult, what happened there, that takes a lot of courage. And, when people are courageous enough to do that, it changes them. I've had people over, since I started working part-time, I've had people email me, contact me, call me on the phone, in many ways to contact me, to tell me And it's very humbling. I'm not sharing this with you to brag, okay? I'm sharing this with you to validate what I'm saying to you. And that is that, you changed my life. I have joy. I have happiness. I never dreamed I'd be able to move forward in the direction that I tried so many years to do until I really looked at what happened to me as a child and worked through that. I couldn't do it. It can be a burden that you may not even be aware of that you have that has stopped you from moving forward in your life. And that burden is your childhood trauma. So when you have the courage to look at it, know it, face it, understand how it's affected you, and giving back all that emotional energy that is so hard to work with. I think I mentioned in one of my shows a long while back is that when people come to me and say, well, I really want to deal with my rage. And right then I correct them and I say, well, you may experience rage, you may act out rage, but it's probably not your rage. Because when it's your rage, well, it's not your rage, okay? Rage is something that's piled on you. Anger is a normal human emotion. And when it is your own personal anger and not messed up with your childhood trauma, not intermingled with your childhood trauma, it's pretty manageable. It might not be fun, but anger is a very powerful emotion when you experience it as a result of something in your reality, not as something that you've been packing around for someone who abused you, abandoned you, or neglected you as a child. Now, I'd get into this later, but what I want to talk about is that if you have something like rage and you have the courage to turn around, look at it, understand it, realize the toxicity of it, get rid of whoever it is, then you're more able to deal with your own anger. That's called courage. Because you think you don't know what it is. It may be true that maybe some of your childhood trauma just seems so, people say to me, well, it wasn't that bad. Well, that would be a defense mechanism to say it wasn't that bad. Because if you're here, it probably was that bad. Otherwise, you'd be out having lunch with your friends, and you wouldn't, have those toxic relationships, whether they're in relationship to your own kids or your spouse or your friends or your job, whatever it is. Everything in life is a relationship. And when you enter those relationships, quote, cleanly, without all that toxic emotional energy that you get from growing up in a family that's less than nurturing, when you it's like you have the ability to have positive relationships. Why? Because your childhood needs were met. Your childhood emotional, psychological, social, spiritual needs were met. Those are childhood needs. They're not, when your childhood needs are met, they're met. It's kind of like when you grow up, you grow up. When your body is, reaches adult, you've reached adulthood. That's it. You're not probably going to grow anymore physically. The good news is that you can continue to grow emotionally and psychologically and spiritually, and you will in some way. But wouldn't you like it to be in a more positive way, a way that you would like yourself, then you can get the courage to really take that on and persevere. Sometimes it's really hard. It's emotionally draining. It's very hard. And, when I'm involved with it in my own work with people, it's emotionally draining. It can be emotionally draining for me. So I can only imagine sometimes how emotionally drained other people are. So, with this courage thing, it means that I can see that it's going to be difficult. I can see that there might be roadblocks along the way, kind of like that snowshoe I had yesterday. I couldn't see where it was taking me. I didn't know what the end result would be. I didn't know how high I was going to go. I didn't know how many obstacles were along the way because I was at the beginning. And when you're in the beginning of a forest, you don't know where that trail's going to lead except for around the corner. And so you have to have enough courage to go forward anyway. And, when you're able to do that in your own life and, know what courage really is, it's like I hope that you have courage when you're even listening to me, that you would say, that Donna, it might sound goofy or it might sound pretty right on or, whatever way. But I will always encourage people to really think about that. Think about what she's saying. Does any of that ring true? And, it's like any kind of information. Only with dealing with your own psyche, there's no expert beside you. Okay? So this courageous thing, once you kind of move through that with your childhood trauma and you start making decisions, you start using your brain a little bit more than just as a reaction. Okay, so emotional reaction, I think that's what I'll do. That point, you think it's what I'll do. One of the things that happens when you become a more functional adult, yes, you have emotional reactions all day long to all different kinds of things. But instead of reacting, which is what people do when they have unresolved trauma, is that their brain hasn't been able to get out of that survival mode. And so if they have an emotional reaction, their brain doesn't have time enough to really think through what it is they want to do next. So they react. Say, there's that emotion. I think I'll do this. Okay. And, kind of like a road rage incident. So you're getting on you're driving down the highway and somebody pulls right in front of you when you are in your functional adult and you don't have a whole bag load of childhood trauma you're carrying around, you're able to really experience, oh, that was frightening. You don't go. You might feel a little angry that somebody put you in that position. But when you're an adult, you recognize that, wow, that person is not safe because they pulled right in front of me and almost crashed into me or pushed me off the road. So I'm a functional adult. What do? I slow down and let them go. I don't want them around me. They're not safe. When you are carrying around unresolved emotional trauma, you don't have that ability to think before you react. And so somebody pulls in front of you, and the first thing you want to do is smack into them. So you chase them down the road and, whoa, wait. That is not a functional response. Now, there might be some people out there who don't agree with me. Please don't ride on my road because I don't want to deal with that. When I'm driving in the car, I just want to think that other people are also interested in their own safety. But you see, there's so much trauma that not only in our childhood trauma, but in our adult life, in our world, like the pandemic, everybody was traumatized. Who came through that trauma healthier and more resilient, even if we got COVID? Those of us that are still here, if we came through that and we're more resilient and we're more capable of recognizing science and what it can do for us, it's like we're doing well. We're not like back in there traumatized for life. We are doing okay. We're doing better than okay, because resilience does that to people. It makes us stronger. It makes us more courageous to face the next thing. People who had childhood trauma or, other adult trauma that hadn't been resolved, they, some of the ways that they dealt with something like a pandemic because of their trauma is that they decided that, at the, with the possibility that I might offend some people, I go by science, is that they might be taking ivermectin. They might, drink Clorox. They might, decide that vaccines are bad for them and they'll never do it. They won't be intimate with somebody that had a vaccine. Okay. Look at the facts. It's courageous to say, oh, that drinking Clorox thing, it cleans clothes. So maybe it'll, kill that bacteria or that virus that's in me. Okay, before you would do that, remember back there where I talked about the road rage thing? Afraid, angry, reactive. I have some Clorox in the laundry room. I think I'll go get that and drink it. No. When you're in your functional adult and you hear suggestions from people that aren't, say, scientists, when you're dealing with a pandemic, you say, I think I'll just back up on that a little bit. I'm going to look at the source. I'm going to see how they came to that conclusion before I respond or react. That's what someone that doesn't have someone who's resolved their childhood trauma or doesn't have it or, isn't suffering from trauma in their adult life are able to move out of that survival mode and say, I think I'll think about that. I think I'll do some research. When I was a child, and I know people hate to hear that when I was a child, but when I was a child and then a young person and a teenager, and I was in college forever, it seemed like, we have computers. So if we wanted to get information, we had to go to the library. That meant we had to get up, leave the house, and go to the library. We didn't have computers. That might sound goofy. How did you do that? We went to the library. When we went into the library, there were stacks of books. There were rows and rows and rows of books. And they were all in what they called the Dewey Decimal System. So, if you wanted to look at science, medicine, you'd go to the card catalog. That was like a Rolodex for people that don't know what a card catalog is. You go to the card catalog, you'd look under medicine, you'd look under science, they would tell you where to go in the library to find information about that subject. And then you would have to go and find the book or find the journal or find whatever the reference was, and you take it to a table, or you could check it out, at the desk and take it home. But if you're just looking for some information, you would take it to the table, you would look at it, you'd write what you learned, you'd write down the reference, who said it, who did it, and why, and then you'd have it. So, by virtue of the fact that we had to actually look it up outside of our home, it gave us time to make decisions. It was, that simple. Now, okay, I'll type that in, and here's a whole list of things that come up. And usually the first ones are, the ones that people pay the most to get there on first. If you are able to stop yourself from doing that first one and keep going without going into the depths of hell there, you'll find there are valuable sources of information, but you have to really scrub through what's on there to find the facts. So I would encourage you to think about it. We're gonna have an election. Think about not how charismatic someone is, but more the factual information about who they are and what they do and what they believe. It's you can find that information. Just make sure you look at the source. It's important to look at the source of the information that you receive before you make decisions. And sometimes people say, I'm afraid to do that because of what I might find out. Guess what? It takes courage to challenge your own thoughts, to challenge your own behavior, to challenge what other people who you admire and respect, to challenge what they say or do. But when you're able to turn around and use that courage that we all have to do it, it's not scary at all. It requires perseverance, time, attention, energy, but it can be done. And in situations that are really important, impact you, impact all of us, it's important to do that. So I'm going to talk about courage some more in my next episode. If you'd like to hear more, please, I'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Healing Your Family Legacy here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. Healing Your Family Legacy is copyright 2024, Dr. Donna Bevan-Lee, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.
Hey friends, Sean here, your Experience of the Soul producer. I want to take a moment to tell you about something truly exciting. The SoulWorks online community, created by your host, Cynthia Alice Anderson, and available on the Mighty Networks app. If you're looking for a place where you can explore your spiritual path, connect with others, and grow in a meaningful way, then this is for you. SoulWorks is so much more than an online community. It's a safe, inclusive space for spiritual exploration, self-discovery, and personal transformation. Inside the community, you'll find everything from uplifting spiritual studies to soul-centered growth practices, meditations, affirmations, and so much more. It's a space where you'll always be supported and never judged. The best part, membership is free. You'll have access to powerful resources, inspiring content, and a supportive group of like-minded people who are all on their own unique spiritual journeys. And if you're ready to dive deeper, there are premium options available to enhance your experience with a live Monday night talk series and extended, deeper meditations. If you're seeking a place to connect, grow, and nurture your soul, we would love to have you join us in the SoulWorks community and see where this journey can take you. Visit my.soulworkscommunity.com today.